Hi there, folks. I'm Emily.
And I'm Elt.
And we, combined together, the two of us, are Oh My Word, a podcast where we review books, movies, musicals, and whatever else we feel like, and let you know what's in it. Is it appropriate for you? Is it appropriate for your kids? Is it not appropriate for anyone? Because we've definitely come across things like that.
And we clutch our pearls all the while as we tell you about these things.
Oi, do we clutch our pearls. We're a couple of pearl clutching. I was trying to think of an alliteration, something else with the C, but the only word that came to mind was crazy, which definitely applies to Elt, but obviously doesn't apply to me, so I couldn't use it.
I was just going to say we're pearl clutching basement dwellers, but sorry, no alliteration, sorry.
No alliteration, but it is literal, so I guess that's almost as good, maybe?
We'll just have to take it.
All right, we'll take what we can get. That's our motto. That's a depressing motto. We should come up with something else. Anyway, moving on from the sad reality of life in a basement to today's book / movie. I love slash. I love slashing things. I like things that are combined by slashes. I find it very exciting. Anyway, today's book series / movie is The Last Apprentice by Joseph Delaney, or in movie version, it's called Seventh Son, which, first of all, confusing. Like, how is someone supposed to find the movie adaptation when you have named it something else?
That's true. But you know what? They renamed The Last Apprentice when they brought it over to the US from the UK. So that's also already confusing. So lots of confusion with the names. And Seventh Son, I mean, it's something that's part of the book. So I guess that's probably why they chose the film. Or maybe there is another film that's called Last Apprentice or something. Or they didn't want to sound like The Apprentice or something. But they also combined like a lot of different things into the film. So.
I mean, I feel like Seventh Son, the idea of the seventh son comes up more often actually than the idea of him being the last apprentice does. I think the only reason you know that he's the last apprentice is in fact because the book is called The Last Apprentice. But otherwise, there's no indication that he's the last apprentice, that he's the spook's last hope. But anyway, we're jumping the gun here. So, The Last Apprentice by Joseph Delaney is an upper middle grade book about Tom Ward, the seventh son of a seventh son, who in his 12th year, 13th year?
Yeah, somewhere
I don't remember how old. Yes. Somewhere around that age, is going off to be apprenticed because all of his older brothers have other jobs, and this is what happens in ye olden times when you have multiple sons. You send them off to be apprenticed, and he apprentices with a spook whose job it is to get rid of all the creepy, crawly, bad guy boggarts and witches that haunt the county, and he encounters a witch.
Spooky stuff. All the spooky stuff.
It was right there for me.
It was.
That's right there. You know why? Because the word that my brain was trying to think of was boogeyman, and I didn't think of it until right now. And in case anyone's wondering, boogeyman is not a man who loves to disco. It's a scary thing that hides in your closet or under your bed. And kids, if you're listening and your parents tell you there aren't monsters under your bed, they're lying to you. Don't trust them. There are monsters there, and they're very scary, and that's why you need to have a nightlight at all times. I have never slept without a nightlight because I don't want the boogeyman to get me. And guess what? Here I am. So, proof that nightlights work.
I don't have a nightlight.
Well, you're probably possessed or something, which would explain why you're so crazy.
Better call the spook.
So we have given our ratings on both the book and the movie. The ratings vary quite a lot. And as a quick recap, we rate the things that we review on 3 different scales. We have our violence, language, and romance scales, and those range from a 0, which is tame and clean, to a 4, which is the dirty, unage-appropriate, highest end of the scale. So violence actually is the same. For both the book and the movie, we gave it a 3. It was fairly graphic. We'll get into that. Language in the book is a 0. Woohoo! We always love it when things are 0. It's a 4 In the movie, though, they get a nice little F-bomb in there, right?
Yeah, it was just almost done to be done. I don't know why people do these things. Yeah.
Because there are no other possible words in the English language to use else. I think it should be very clear that there's only that one word to use, so what else could they possibly do?
Well, we've discussed this before, that when you're in a made-up universe, make up a language, make up a word. Even if it's the worst word in the language, it doesn't mean anything to us. Don't use our language just to get the worst word.
You're coming at me with your literary logic, and I'm not having any of it. We have to use the F word because we're edgy and because it's for teens, apparently.
Whatever. Yeah, apparently. Exactly.
So the movie is a 4 for language, and then romance, the book is a 0. I mean, maybe like a 0.5 because the protagonist, Tom Ward, and the girl hold hands for a hot second, but it's not even holding hands. It's like they're sitting and they place their hands on top of each other, sort of in supportive solidarity. There's an indication maybe that it's a little bit more because Tom has feelings about it, but the feelings are chalked up to friendship and having support. So it's not necessarily romantic, but we'll give it a 0.5 because there's a hint. And then in the movie, it's a 1.
Yeah, because they make out in the film. You know what? It might even be higher because they wake up together, but we don't see anything. Just that they woke up together.
Oh. Are they older in the movie?
I don't know if they officially are because they're both played as young teenagers. They don't seem to be older teenagers. Maybe you could call them 15, but they don't come across as higher than that, than older than that, I mean.
And they make out?
Yeah. You're right. We should give it a higher scale for romance.
I mean, making out, maybe like a 1.5. I mean, making out, if you're telling me a couple of adults are making out, no big deal. But 12 and 13, a kiss is one thing. That can be cute in a movie, you have braces or whatever. It's awkward and gangly. But making out, that's a different situation.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like an awkward situation. It's supposed to be like, oh, they're destined for each other.
Even though she is of witch stock and he is a future spook.
I know. You know what? We're going to give it a 2. Even as we spoke now, we just raised, we've just speaking about it, we've clutched more pearls.
We did that live, folks. You were here for that. That happened in real time.
Yeah. You know what? Also,
exciting.
It should get it too. And this is sort of already getting into the difference or part of what's shown in the film over the book. So one thing about the film is that if you don't really know what it's based on, you may or may not enjoy it because it seems like they cram all 13 books from the series into one film. So it feels a little bit jumpy at certain points, and certain parts of the story has to move very quickly to cover all of it. Mm-hmm. And here's something that it's not just this film. This is something that you see so often. What is it that when there's an evil female character, fantasy character, the more evil she is, the more cleavage she has to show? I don't understand that rule.
Do you want my feminist answer? Or my non-feminist answer?
Any answer that would actually make sense, which I don't think any of them would. Because she's so edgy, so that's why she has to show more cleavage. You can't do evil magic unless you're showing a lot of cleavage. What is the deal with that?
Well, that is how magic works. So I guess I should have asked, should I give you my feminist or my magic answer?
Okay.
My feminist answer is, obviously what they're trying to indicate is that femininity itself is dangerous and evil. And so the more femininity that's being shown, the more dangerous and evil the character is. That's my feminist answer. I had another answer.
Okay,
but alas,
while you're thinking of
I've
that,
forgotten it.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well, while you're thinking of it, my rebuttal to your rebuttal right now is actually I had the buttal, you rebutted, and I'm going to rebuttal. Right? What's the opposite of? What's the stage before a rebuttal? Is it a buttal?
It must. What else could it possibly be? You can't something you haven't already done.
Right. Exactly. So even if it's supposed to show something about dangers of femininity or I don't know, whatever you just said, how does that align with a story that has romance in it, that this witch character is supposed to be portrayed as someone who evokes compassion within the main character? So not in an evil way, because part of what, I don't know if it occurs in the books because we only read the first book, but in the film, so Tom Ward has this thing for Alice, who's a witch. And part of his having this thing for her and say, oh, I love her and all this stuff is he kind of takes everything that he's learning from the spook to say, like, why do we always have to lock a witch up instead of giving her a chance to not be evil, right? Just because she's a witch doesn't mean she's evil and has to be locked up, which is the opposite of danger. It's her eliciting, I guess, her playing the other feminine role of actually eliciting compassion and emotion in a way to temper the male's natural instincts of just reverting to either violence or locking up and stuff like that. Or maybe that's the point, the duality of both feminine sides.
Maybe.
Yeah. Either way, zip up your dress.
Well, is that the Alice character shows more cleavage or
No.
witch?
The Alice character is right. Okay, right. So the Alice character is dressed appropriately.
Okay.
She just dressed like a plain dress kind of. Oh, no, I think she has to change. She changes toward the end for her like fighting clothes. But in the beginning we see her in regular clothes. But it's the
Gotcha.
the main witch. I forgot what her name is with the M. Mother or something.
Malkin.
Right. So it's her. It's the one she's played by Julianne Moore. Oh, we totally skipped around now. Well, the film it came out a while ago. It has Ben Barnes, Julianne Moore, and Jeff Bridges, which they kind of shifted the story a little bit to give the adults a little bit more screen time. And the Jeff Bridges who plays the spook, they kind of like upped his deadpan humor a little bit. He has a lot of, like, you can see he's having a lot of fun in his role, which is great. It's always nice to see someone having a good time. And it's funny to see Ben Barnes in that role because he's so much younger there. And he's going to be playing soon in the Shadows and Bone adaptation, which is coming out, I think, Netflix. If you haven't canceled it yet, at the end of this month, which we'll probably have to get to because we did speak about Six of Crows. So, and you've read the Grishaverse books.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to cover that. Yay, we get to watch more teen TV stuff.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of adaptations now, which is good. It's always good because that helps the YA market a lot to have more of these adaptations. Mm-hmm. As long as we don't have to clutch too many pearls over them.
Well, can't make any promises because apparently the way to appeal to teens is through sex, drugs, and alcohol. Well, not so much well, yeah, there's still alcohol. Oh, and weed. Weed is the new alcohol,
that is, you know what?
I think.
Anybody who says that is just, I'm just going to say it as a blanket rule, even though I'm sure, blah, 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 whatever. Anybody who believes that is just not giving enough credit to teenagers.
What do you mean?
As in, you could speak to teenagers about real stuff and not just about drugs and alcohol and everything else. And just because they're indulging that behavior doesn't mean we should be encouraging it by showing more of it. And just because if someone might be indulging in that behavior because it's edgy, we should be steering them away from it and reminding them that there's real things to be dealing with. Not to make things over serious, but to just be like, I know you think this is cool and edgy, but like put your brain in the right place. We will encourage you to do so.
Yeah.
Anyways, did we talk about the book?
Oh yeah, the book. Okay, so I have to say, I don't know what you thought about the book. I thought it was okay. It was definitely more graphic in terms of the violence than I anticipated. So we said the violence is a 3. The spook describes some of what he has to do to the different creatures that he catches. He also explains what happens to his previous apprentice. So his previous apprentice was trying to catch a boggart. A boggart? Bogart? Not a Humphrey.
I don't know. Yeah.
Like the ones from Harry Potter. A boggart. Anyway, he was trying to catch one, but he did it improperly, and the boggart chews off his fingers to the second knuckle, and then he bleeds to death. That I found really disturbing. Also, some of the stuff with the witches. Oh, and there's a story of a guy who buries his wife alive and then kills himself. So it's, I didn't anticipate that because the reading level is middle grade, and the first thing, and I don't remember what the first thing was that was so graphic, but when I read that first graphic thing, I was thrown off and disturbed. And I finished the book because I knew we wanted to talk about it, but I just felt like it was a little bit much for what I was anticipating to be, I guess, a little bit more of a Harry Potter-like, or it just, that felt so adult. It didn't really feel middle grade.
It's very creepy. Even though I keep hearing,
yeah,
I've heard from a few people that their kids loved these books and this series, which maybe kids are darker than we think, because it is pretty. It's not just like spooky. There's some like there's a sense of creepiness to the whole book, not just sure the hallucinations and stuff like that, but I guess it's either because of the detail it gives or whatever reason it is. It does come across as much creepier than what you usually see for this age range.
Yeah, and then there were little things like the older brother, when he goes back home, is always angry and the whole life of a spook is isolated, and even his mother loves him, but is kind of cold. Like there's just a coldness and a darkness to the whole first book that it just caught me off guard.
I'm not sure if it's said in the first book, so I mean, these books came out a while ago, so spoilers all over. But the mother turns out to be a witch, and she like predicts. It does say that in the first book. She predicts.
No, it's just like you figure it out that's what it has to be.
She predicts that, like, from when he was born, that he was going to be like this spook's apprentice, which I don't really know what that is. That she decided, like, okay, this is who my son's going to be. Why she decide? Because I know it's the seventh son of the seventh son, but she makes it seem like she somehow. She set out to marry a seventh son and then set out to have seven sons so that there would be a seventh son of a seventh son who would be a spook's apprentice, which I don't really know how she could control for gender. Like, because it's all officially seven sons, so I don't really know how she made that happen. Actually, in the film, they show her for like 1 second sort of reveal herself, and then the mother character, I keep forgetting what her name is, totally like destroys her in a second. So it's supposed to be like, oh, she's such a great witch, or she was such a great witch before she ran off and got married. And she gets she just gets destroyed the second she tries to show power. Which is also part of the pacing of the film, just trying to get so much stuff in. So they just move between things very quickly. It's a very accelerated timeline, so sometimes it doesn't really make sense how we got from one to the other, because not enough time to have made that happen.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it was...
After you.
It was just interesting just from the creepiness of it. It felt a little bit of a different kind of read. Doesn't mean that I understand why kids would gravitate toward this. But I guess Lemony Snicket has a certain kind of darkness to it that you wouldn't necessarily expect, like a cynicism to it that you wouldn't necessarily expect kids to get. And kids love Lemony Snicket. So I guess there are dark kids out there.
That is actually the one author that I thought of as I was reading it, except the difference personally is that Lemony Snicket is such a good writer and is so clever, whereas this book, it was confusing because the writing was not elevated. It was very much within the age range, but then the subject matter felt like it was for a different age. So it was a little bit hard to reconcile the two. Yeah.
It seemed like it should have been written for teens, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably.
Maybe it's just an English thing, because if they have to bring it across the pond, maybe American doesn't. I don't know. It's not like the kids...
We're not sophisticated enough for their highbrow Englishness.
Yeah, or just English kids are darker.
Something
I'm like, that's where Oliver's from, right? So English kids maybe are just used to darker stories.
That's true. Those poor kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's sort of my thoughts on Last Apprentice. Do you have any remaining things to share, Ms. Elt?
No, I think that's it. I don't think we have anything else to say on this.
I think I'm going to call you Melt. Just combine Ms. Elt and just make it Melt.
But then you might get hungry because you're going to think about cheese.
It's already happened.
Well, there you go then. Let's go find some cheese snacks.
Sounds good. Ooh, or just a grilled cheese. Oh.
Fine, we can make that happen too.
Perfection. Oh, all right. Dear listeners, thank you so much for being here. While we go off and make food, I have a little tasky poo for you. Why don't you subscribe to the podcast? Maybe leave a rating,
please,
and a review and a comment. Oh yeah, please. I'm not going to make you do it. I'm not going to stand over you and watch you do your homework, but Elt and I would very much appreciate it. And if you don't want to do it for Elt because she's kind of weird, do it for me, because I'm lovely.
Oh, and follow us on Instagram.
Oh yeah. Oh My Word Podcast. We're on Instagram. We post stuff like what we're reading and the ratings for each episode. So you want to check us out there and, hit us up in the DM, send us questions. If there's something you think we should cover that we haven't, and you have recommendations, we'd love to hear from you. So find us there.
And we may or may not do something about it.
So thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers, everyone. Oh My Word Podcast is brought to you by the pearl-clutching basement dwellers at Oh My Word. Follow us on Instagram for updates at Oh My Word Podcast, or like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For full episode notes and detail, visit eltenenbaum.com. Music is by Tim Burke. Sound is by Gabriel Yaffe. See you next time.